It's kind of like what I was explaining. We have like a Yama who is like your secretary for hell, and they're like, "Oh yes, Mr. Smith, I see you were a rapist. You get the burning your feet off hell." Mr. James Weeks Booth, you shot the president, so we're gonna make you watch nothing but president porn.
You
for the next 2 years.
You know what this reminds me of?
Yeah.
The Rowan Atkinson, The Devil's skit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's what it's actually reminding me of right
Toby.
now. Toby, that's the one.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, but unlike that
and
skit.
the Jews are right.
Yeah.
You're listening to Alternating with Erik, episode 31. I am Connor. I'm a musician and sound engineer, and I have with me always my friend and co-host, martial artist and Russian, Erik.
Yes, thank you, Connor. That was a very apt description. Rather ambiguous on the Russian part, but we'll...
Do you want me to say Armenian Russian? How clear do you want me to be exactly?
Oh, I don't really mind.
Because I could say British Kiwi or European Kiwi.
I do not mind. No one's really cared before, but the martial artist part is... I'll take that to heart.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. Well, see, I say musician because I've only just sort of taught myself guitar like this year and last year. And I'm a self-taught guitarist, so kind of almost don't count myself as a guitarist quite yet.
Well, you count yourself as a good guitarist if you can manage to, play...
Play Wonderwall.
No, play Metallica almost, note for note.
Okay, you need a bit of definition. I know plenty of people that can play Metallica note for note. Not well, but plenty of people that can play, what is it, like Fade to Black or something. All right.
Oh, I was thinking more like Wherever I May Roam. That's always an easy one.
You're going for the not as you're not going for the typical Enter Sandman. You know.
What? Oh, Enter Sandman's good, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah. Well, I'd go Ride Lightning. That's a good one.
King Nothing. That's always a good one.
Yeah. See, we know I'm Metallica.
Actually, first time I've ever listened to King Nothing.
I'm glad you didn't say Saint Anger or so whatever.
No.
Podcast.
But I will tell you something funny. The first time I ever listened to King Nothing, it was of a parody music video featuring George W. Bush II.
No.
You can imagine why.
All right. So, Erik, what have you been up to this week?
Well, what have I been up to this week? Just trying to relax and you just kind of work and relax. Not exactly the best lifestyle, but whenever I'm not relaxing, I have been rewatching some old episodes of South Park. Not the best source material for young kids, but obviously for adults it is the
We're not aimed
funniest
at
thing.
young kids. I don't know why you're acting like we're a kid-friendly podcast.
We're not?
We're not.
When did this happen?
We're not. I don't even label us as kid-friendly on any of our stuff on YouTube or any of that.
Yeah.
We I think we've actually got the explicit tag on a couple of our ones because we do tend to swear a couple times.
Oh God, I hope so. And but other than that,
is this season one?
Yeah, there's some random old episodes that I've been looking at. I can't even remember some of them.
Is this like the Nambla one? Because I remember that one being pretty good.
So
that's like
it's kind
seasons.
I've been kind of in and out of South Park, so it's been weird because I've been mostly focusing on a TV series called Suits.
Yep,
which
is watching that last week.
Yeah, because it's kind of like Boston Legal and The Practice with Alan Shaw.
Can you to show your weebness give us an anime comparison at all?
An anime comparison? What?
Because
the
best I can think of is like I don't know, a B shonen
How about
legal drama, but I can't think of any anime that would be like a legal drama. Maybe like Ace Attorney.
Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney? That's basically what it's like, but in the real world.
Yeah.
So a little bit more boring because there's no one shouting objection. Well, unless the main character decides to be funny.
Well, you say realistic, but I imagine there's a lot of people not sitting and talking about their cases. I imagine a lot of people are getting up and talking to the audiences, like the crowd, the jury and stuff, what you can't actually do.
Not in the New Zealand court, and I've been as a juror.
You can't do that in American one. You know what I mean? Where every movie,
I think
where the lawyer gets up and yells at the jury and the other lawyers.
That doesn't happen that often because it's kind of frowned upon, especially in New Zealand where
does it happen in Suits? That's what I mean though.
It does happen less often in Suits than it does in other shows.
Okay, so it's slightly more realistic.
It's slightly more realistic, which is really good. Which is a really good thing about it. I think the only thing I really skip out on it is it's more kind of character development sections or segments. Okay. Where we kind of see what the characters are like in real life. Outside of their work and just how it develops them.
Well, they're trying to get you to like the characters, Eric.
The only character I like at the moment is Jessica Pearson and Harvey Specter.
Okay.
Mike Ross, who's also supposed to be the other main character.
You're talking like they have the most lawyer-sounding names. Mike Ross.
Mike Ross.
Attorney at large.
I don't know. Mike Ross is my least favorite character at the moment.
What did you say? Sarah Perkinson?
Jessica Pearson.
Oh, Jessica Pearson.
So Jessica Pearson is one of the characters, and so is Harvey Specter. Those two characters I love. The other character I like is Donna Patterson, who is...
Jesus, these are like the most TV lawyer names ever.
Yeah.
Donna Patterson.
Donna Patterson isn't actually a lawyer. She's the...
What?
She's Harvey Specter's assistant, his secretary. And who else? Then there's Lewis Pitts, who is just a rat.
Okay.
Looking like a rat and also acting like a rat.
So he's a Steve Buscemi type character.
Oh hell no! He's worse than Steve Buscemi.
He's more rat than Steve Buscemi. I don't know how that's physically possible.
That is physically possible. As a matter of fact, let me show you a picture.
On our audio podcast.
I will show you so you at least understand exactly what I mean. Blah, blah, here we go. I think that's it.
Can everybody look this up? What's the name so everybody at home can
hang on. Let's see. Lewis Pitts.
Okay.
I think it's Lewis Pitts.
So look up Lewis Pitts because this is an audio podcast and Eric wants to talk about something visual.
Yes, I do.
Are you going to wave your hands and do hand motions now that nobody can see?
Yes, I know. The guy just looks like a... here we go.
Right.
Here we go. Ooh, here we go. You see?
Wow, he looks like he's missing some cheese in his hand or something.
Exactly. This guy is... Here's him with his teeth out. You tell me that he doesn't look like a rat.
Okay, yeah, I can see it, but I still think Steve Buscemi is more rat looking.
Steve Buscemi, this guy makes Steve Buscemi look like nothing.
No, Steve Buscemi's got that skinny rat thing going for him. That guy's at least he's just like a chubby rat,
more or less.
He's had some good food. He's not a coke fiend, Steve Buscemi looks like he could play a drug dealer.
But I think in all his work, Steve Buscemi made us think he's a rat, but we knew he wasn't really.
He's played actual rats a couple of times though.
Yeah, but with this guy, with Lewis Pitts in the Suits, he was. When you see him the first time, when you hear him talk the first time, you immediately know you're a fucking rat. You are a rat, okay? Right. And I like the character just for that. Mm-hmm. The other times in the story, I just dislike him because he's disloyal. He'll just take advantage of what of any opportunity he can.
So Eric, who's best girl?
Let's tone that down a bit. I know we argued that for Rose of Versailles review, but we're not gonna.
You always gotta ask that. Who's the wifer? Who's the
Fine, I'm stuck between Jessica and Donna.
See, I knew you'd do it.
Shut up. Shut up. They do, the actresses that play them do a really great job, I think, and it's it's that factor of fear that they actually put into their own character that I really find enjoyable because there's not a lot. I don't see too much of that, especially with lawyers. Like with lawyers, you just hate them, but you don't fear them unless they actually, bring something to you. All this paperwork and all this legal mumbo jumbo to scare you. But with these characters, they just need to look at you and you think, I think I just pissed myself a little. Which I think these actresses did really well.
So yeah, we both watched non-anime stuff this week.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I did watch something actually anime related, but since we're talking about non-anime related content, I finished The Good Place. I've been watching that. So it's the show of Kristen Bell and is it Kirsten or Kristen? Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, and it's all about the afterlife.
Okay,
They basically, Kristen Bell dies and she goes to this place called The Good Place.
Okay,
and it's her and a couple other people, and they're basically they're in this sort of I don't want to spoil it. They're in kind of this heaven-like place, and it's really funny show. But it talks a lot about different things to do with the afterlife and death and what heaven could actually be and what hell could be and all this sorts of stuff. It's really interesting. A lot of the concepts and.
Hang on, who's the main actress? Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell. You'd know she's in Frozen. You know Frozen, Eric. Your favorite movie.
What? I've never heard of.
Veronica Mars, maybe. I'm
no.
trying to think of other things you might know from.
Hang on, let me have a look. Spartan. What?
She's been in a bunch of stuff, basically.
Okay.
And Ted Danson, you'd know from Cheers if you ever saw that. That's an old
Let me look
TV
at
show.
Let me look at the more recent ones.
You wouldn't, yeah. And there's just a lot of the people. It's by the same guy who did the American Office, and
she was in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
that is Lucy Stillman.
yeah.
Wow, that is incredibly good.
So she, the guy who made the show did American Office and Parks and Recreation.
Yes, that's it.
It's that type of humor. And it's got some of the same people turn up occasionally, like Adam Scott, who you'd know from Parks and Recreations. He turns up.
Huh.
Like
she was in BoJack Horseman as well. That's new.
Yeah,
and she was. Oh, I remember her. She was
You should be able to just see a picture of her.
No, she featured herself in iZombie. That's it as well. I've never seen iZombie, to be honest, but it just looks strange.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I finished that, and then I didn't talk about either of these last time, I don't think. Oh, no, I did talk about one of them last time. So, I finished American Horror Story Asylum, and it's as good as everybody said, except I had to watch... So, I can't find anywhere legally to watch it streaming, so I had to go to other means to watch it. And I couldn't find a good, high quality way to watch it. So I had to kind of watch it in a stretched format at the last episode, which wasn't great. Everybody's faces looked kind of warped and weird. So I kind of ruined the last episode.
Now, Connor, this is what happens when you look at pirated videos.
Yeah. But hey, it should be on Netflix or Amazon or... There should be... I can't even find it, to be honest.
Well, look, I always wanted some of the best Nicolas Cage movies to be on Netflix, but when I tried to pirate them, they look like crap. So now I have to wait patiently. Or just watch them on some other free website, I don't know.
So yeah, but I did watch most of it, and I'm watching... I watched one episode of Hotel. I'm going to try and watch a little bit more of it. I just want to give some of these seasons a go, just because I want to see how similar it is to Ratchet. Because I liked bits of Ratchet, and I sort of like what Ryan Murphy's doing with some of these shows. So I watched that, and then one I didn't talk about that might get Eric's attention away from his phone right now is yes, as I watched I watched something that wasn't Japanese animation. I watched an American animated show. I thought I would give a X-Men cartoon show a go because I had seen like the old one.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned the old school X-Men stuff.
Yeah, I watched the old. I feel nostalgic sometimes, and I like the X-Men. So I've seen the old one, the classic one that everybody knows the theme song.
Yeah, that was a
yeah.
I don't know what to say.
It was a cool show. The animation was not great sometimes. Some people's eyes were different colors and things like that.
I thought you were gonna say some people's eyes burned out, or
no, it would be it's not as bad as like the Super Friends where Batman will suddenly be flying in one frame, or Aquaman will be able to teleport, or something like that.
Super Friends. I've never heard of that.
The Super Friends. It's Justice League before Justice League.
Oh my god!
Ran for ages. So I watched the old X-Men. I had seen that, and I grew up watching X-Men Evolution, which is like the 2000s one. It was dubbed in Canada, so if you know like all the Ocean Group dub people from Death Note and Dragon Ball Z and all that, the original Dragon Ball Z dub, like Brian Drummond and all that, then you'll hear them in that version of X-Men. Scott Freeman is Scott McNeil as Wolverine, who's like awesome as Wolverine. But the version I watched was a newer cartoon that I thought I'd give a go called Wolverine and the X-Men. Because I tried watching the X-Men anime because I'd seen a friend of ours who used to work at the comic book shop Pulsar. It's a New Zealand comic book shop we have here. He was watching the X-Men cartoon, like the anime. So I thought I'd give it a go because all the other like Marvel anime stuff is usually crap. Like the Wolverine anime is really, really bad. Like he has I think he's meant to be younger and it doesn't make any sense. And he just has really bad, like weird hair. So I watched one episode of the anime and it was okay. I didn't like all the character designs. Wolverine has really weird hair in that one as well. Like they've got the two sort of like, I don't know what you call it, like where he's got kind of the ears in his hair sort of thing. They've got that sort of look where it's got like the split in the middle, but it's like got this sort of weird Afro samurai sort of, doesn't quite look right. Storm looked fucking amazing, you know. Yeah, best waifu in that show. So hey, don't give me that look. I
am giving him a look of disappointment, by the way.
You would hit that. You would hit.
Wait, what?
Well, it's based off Halle Berry.
Yeah,
so you'd hit that.
Yeah.
It's based off the Halle Berry one with like the short, cut.
I never agree nor deny that. Well, what was the saying? I neither confirm nor deny that. That's
all right. So. Yeah, so I watched Wolverine versus the Wolverine and the X-Men. It's not too bad. Funnily enough, going from the anime to that, they actually have a similar plot where both involve Cyclops kind of going rogue for a bit, and both involve Jean Grey going away, but for different reasons. And this one has an interesting voice cast. Steve Bloom is Wolverine. He's not too bad. I kind of prefer Scott McNeil. He's just my favorite version, like vocal wise. And Liam O'Brien is Nightcrawler. He does a pretty good German accent. He's not too bad. And yeah, there's a couple recognizable voices in there. I like Fred Tatasciore Beast and the Hulk. He's really good as that. So I'm enjoying what I've seen about that. It's kind of just Saturday morning fun. There's not too much crazy stuff.
I can tell you that
I wanted to watch the anime because that's the only version of Wolverine in cartoon form where he actually like stabs someone with his claws, like it actually goes through someone. And that never happens in any of like the animated stuff. especially in the US.
Yeah, because they do like to censor things a lot so the children don't get traumatized.
So, because Erik has complained multiple times that I don't watch new stuff, I tried to watch some new stuff just to you know.
Keyword tried.
New anime. I genuinely did watch some new anime. It wasn't just Uzaki-chan because Erik gets me on that. So,
what have you watched?
So I'm trying to remember. I watched two. One I can't even remember because it was kind of forgettable.
Which is fair.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It just kind of was. I know it had a lot of fan service, and I just wasn't into it. No, it was one of those shows where it was like Strike Witches-y, so it was just it just felt wrong watching it after a while. So I was like, no. So yeah, gave that a go. I couldn't get into it. Sorry.
That's all good. What's the second one then?
So I found out this isn't actually that new. It's a sequel to an old show that I hadn't seen, and I even watched it and I was like, these uniforms look very similar to another show. And I thought, this is just some show copying another show because that happens, you know. That they, sorry, but now a lot of the animes they are kind of releasing a lot of remakes or things that just look like another thing. So I did kind of just assume, this is just copying this other thing. But no, the show is called. Do I have the name here? Okay, so it's called. I'm going to try and read this without going off mic. It's called Maho no Resohan Hen. I don't know exactly what that translates to. Maho's magic, I'm pretty sure. But basically, it is a high school magic show. That's basically what I would call it. And they have white and green uniforms, and the main dude has black hair. He looks like a lot of typical sort of protagonists.
Yeah, you're describing the most generic. I'm
glad you said that because it was very generic.
So okay,
and apparently this is the second season, but I clicked on it because the cover art looked really cool. It had those guys in their uniforms, but then it had a character that had kind of a Miyazaki mask and hair. So it's this could be different and interesting.
What kind of weapon does the main character have?
I think she had a sword or something. That's why I clicked on it.
Wait, he or she?
She.
Okay.
Because she had this red hair and then she had kind of this masquerade mask, and I think it looked like she had a sword or something. See, I can barely remember some of the stuff about this. It wasn't that rememberable. Other than her look was kind of cool. She had a blue suit thing on as well. It's a cool character design. But that's about it. Could not tell you. I could sort of tell you the plot. Basically, these guys are in a Japanese magical high school, and the year is 2093 or whatever. But it basically just looks like regular Japan, but they've got
It's funny how
they've got different cars. That's basically it. Or they've got screens they can pull up. It's not that different.
It's funny how some of these shows seem to have run out of imagination in describing the futuristic state of their own of a country. Like before, say Akira or
those
Genesis
Blade Runner
Evangelion,
inspired as well.
Yeah, but even those shows had a far better outlook of what the future looked like, whether it was bleak or up.
I guess it is more believable that we wouldn't be that technically advanced, in that amount of time. We're not going to have, it's not going to be Blade Runner, but at the same time, it's more exciting if it's Blade Runner because it's kind of boring if it's just
But if you kind of
we got better phones now and better cars and
but then if you imagine what the propaganda was like for say the U.S. and Russia, where they imagine what they imagine the world will be like in the future and as far forward as the 90s.
This show did have some sort of war and some political. I feel like you and Chung would have paid more attention to it. I didn't give a shit about it. I heard the exposition.
How dare you
and I
not
was
pay attention?
Well, it was I don't know. It was like when you guys watched Freezing, and I just got distracted by I was paying too much attention to the fights and trying to like the characters, and you guys were telling me all this plot and this armor and this. I was like, I didn't pay attention to any of that because I didn't care about any of the characters.
Sorry, is this the show you watched or Freezing?
We both watched Freezing.
Okay, so we both watched Freezing.
Yeah,
but somehow
the show is like this where to me, I don't care about like any of the exposition or any of that stuff if you can't also get me to care for the characters. I'm sorry.
I think the thing with me and Chong is if the exposition flows well and isn't kind of
it didn't
like the first Zoid's Chaotic Century episode, right? We got that exposition with the main character's mother explaining what happened to the father. That's not the kind of exposition we look out for. The kind of exposition we look out for is the kind that flows well, builds the world, and actually helps us explain.
So this is the
in
typical
between the fights.
like Code Geass one where you introduce the exposition at the start of the episode, and they talk about how the war or something, and this is changing and that's changing, but I didn't notice like any. I don't know. I was giving it a go, but hesitant with it. And usually I'll like sort of pay attention to that, but then I'll pay more attention when I like the characters and all that. Like once I really like the characters in the first episode, I'll listen more and pay more attention to that stuff.
Yeah, well, what if
because the exposition doesn't usually get me to like the characters. Like, you know, I have to like the characters, not just the world.
I'm kind of the opposite. If I enjoy the world, the world building more than the characters, I will try and get myself hooked on the world more than the characters, and the characters come later. For me, that's the thing that really, grips me. Is what does the world look like? Is it great? Is it crap? Because this is the only reason. Because I'll tell you right now, this is the only reason I've been able to watch the entirety of Darling in the Franxx. I didn't really care that much for the characters at the start. I just liked it because of what the world looked like.
I watched that show and I was like, I'd almost be willing to give this a go because there's something interesting with the characters going on, and the look of it seemed interesting, but the rest of the show just didn't interest me. After a while, I was like, no, I actually don't like these characters that much.
The world building of Darling in the Franxx was somewhat unique.
Yeah, so. It's very Ava. Let's just say that. So
pretty much.
This show is basically, and I'm sure there'll be some very angry nerds who are going to write in that no, it's actually this, and you should have just watched the first season and all those. Sorry, I clicked on the first show that came up that looked new, and I watched it because I liked the designs. Sorry, I judged a book by its cover. And guess what? I didn't really like it that much. So the first episode is like this girl from America who's like a part of like a magical police department.
America!
Is what I got from it. And she's got that cool character design masking that I told you about. And she's like capturing this guy. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm in for this. This is kind of like Darker Than Black, like the action and the feel. And then, she turns into, a generic American blonde girl.
America!
Yeah. She turns into every, the stereotypical blonde American anime girl look.
Well, blonde hair is more,
I'm not saying it's not, but you know what I mean.
But it is more foreign, Yeah. Or in the case of East Asia, it is far more associated with Western.
All the female characters in the show, a couple of them had purple and red hair, and all the crazy anime.
Okay, let's put that stuff aside.
So it's
that stuff doesn't matter. Let's pretend.
And
then
the other
exist.
dumb thing with this is when they introduced her name. Her name was two American names and then a Japanese name.
So what was that?
Because she's got to be Hafu. Two Western names and a Japanese name.
What the hell were the two Western names?
I don't remember. Angelina or something, and then Angelina
Jolie Naomi.
No. It was something like Angelina. We pulled up an English dictionary for a word.
Pulled up an English.
Well, that's what it's like. Sometimes it is. I mean, when we fucking reviewed Freezing, and the main character, the female one, was called Statalizer. I was like, someone clearly just looked up state and then put Liza on there.
What do you think people pulled out a board of picture?
I think they do with these.
What is
animes.
it? Not Pictionary. What is it? The word game, and just kind of put things together and went, okay, this is what we're calling it.
Dude, you've got to see Gundam. There are names like that all over the place. I'm pretty sure there's one that's called Penny Silver. There's names like that bad in
Penny
Gundam.
Silver is the most Victorian Butler British name I have ever heard.
There's names like that in Gundam where it's literally just someone picked an English word, paired it up with another. And that's what this name felt like, where it was Angelina Japanese name Kudo, and then something else. And of course, you had to be half Japanese because you can't have a full foreign person.
Do you think the
who's American.
studios that make up, the studios that have people that make up these names have a shelf of, dictionaries from different countries?
I think they just pull up either Google Translate or like a dictionary, and they're just like, okay, Tanaka,
even they can't be
Tanaka,
that lazy.
can you find a word? Well, I've got free. And can you pull up another word? Let me see. I've got Smith. All right, his name's Free Smith.
Oh, that is no.
That happens all the time. Hey, good example. Even though I think it's supposed to technically be a German name. What the fuck is up with Train Hartnett from bloody Black Cat? That's like a bloody weird name. That feels like a dictionary name. Like someone went in the dictionary and they're like, Train. We have those in Japan. Hartnett. Okay, that's an actual name.
Oh,
geez. At least they tried one of the characters where they're like, yeah, Sven Voldfeed. That's a name.
Do you know what? I was watching a.
This is a generic magic show.
I was watching because while we're on the names of it, I've been watching a compilation video of a gaming stream, and someone made a joke. I think it might have been a joke. I'm not sure if it's true, but apparently in Japan, it's completely legal to name your child buttocks and prostitute. Now,
well, they might not know the.
I think.
Well, you're allowed to name your kid almost anything in a lot of countries.
And I find that hilarious for not just because of the funny aspect of that, but also because Western, the way it would be translated to, English or to any other language to fit the meaning would mean that there wasn't
so
anything
this
on
is
purpose.
the Japanese word for buttocks and
the Japanese word for buttocks and prostitute.
So it's not like they have their English name is
exactly, and
they're
because
not a
there's
Hafu
multiple,
student or something.
and because any kanji and any combination of hiraganas in Japanese could have any number of meanings, potentially, then it is possible to accidentally name your child buttocks or prostitute, and it's legal because it doesn't have to be that meaning as long as you tell people this. In the same way that apparently Naruto means a piece of fish cake on top of a ramen.
That's from Dragon
or meaning maelstrom as well.
Yeah. Well, that's from Dragon Ball. Because Akira Toriyama did that, and some of his names didn't get translated over correctly. I think in the dub of Dragon Ball they call her character's name is actually Lunch, but they call her Launch in the dub, which is kind of better because at least Launch is kind of almost a name, but
God, that is weird.
But that happens all the time. We're gonna take a little break and. We'll be back with the review, and we're doing a regular review this week where we're going to review a manga and an anime, and we'll be right back after the break.
See ya.
Oh, pitiful shadow lost in the darkness, bringing torment and pain to others. O damned soul wallowing in your sin. Perhaps it is time to die.
All right, we are back from the break.
Hello.
And we're just going to make a small correction because we were looking up some stuff. I showed Erik the dumb name of Lock-On Stratos from Gundam 00. Yes, that's a real name from a Gundam. But the actual show that I watched that was from the fall 2020 anime, the new show that I was telling Erik that's kind of a generic magic school, is called... Mahoka Koko no Retose. Yes, I know, I'm butchering for it. It's a long title and I'm tired. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Raiho Sha Hidden.
Yeah, so I've actually watched some of this.
Erik's actually watched this.
I've watched some of this before, but only maybe the first 4 or 5 episodes because the world building, the sort of world building it had in it, in terms of how it introduced magic and its uses and concepts, was a little bit boring to me. Because I felt that it took way too long. Like, every single aspect of it was just... It was like someone trying to explain to you how a jet engine worked from the very beginning, okay? Yeah. So basically, it's like, so here's the component. Because you know what it sounds like? It sounds like that documentary I watched on how the jet engines of a Blackbird, worked, okay? Because they described every single component of it. All right, so here's the front part. All the air filters right through and also goes over it. However, the middle part has all these other components, which, function is getting the air right through, but also captured in there. That's how it bloody explains how magic works. And I was just like, I do not need this. I can just look at your freaking, Wikipedia page on this. Just no, it was just, the world building was a bit much. So I didn't really enjoy how they took so much time. And then not only the fact that it took so much time to explain how their magic, how the concept and process of magic work, but it's also the fact that it took too long for them to actually use the magic, as long as it took them to explain it.
So we're gonna start with the anime that we're reviewing this week, and I picked this show because I listen to a lot of different anime podcasts, and this show has been shit on a lot by a lot of other. this has by a lot of shows, and I will get into why when we get into the cons, because there are some actual problems with the show. But I thought funnily enough, we just talked about like us arguing over concept versus characters. This is one of the few shows where I actually like the world building and the concept more than the actual characters a little bit. Because I think like all the history and all that is quite interesting. And especially when you like go into the research behind, what the historical sort of stuff, like the mythology of what this is based on, the show, it's quite interesting. So we're talking about Hellgirl, which is usually... I'm actually just going to get into this now because I think it needs to be addressed, and it's something that a lot of people don't like this show for. So Hellgirl is usually not very well liked for two main reasons. One, I believe it might have been done by Gonzo, which usually doesn't have a high grade of like animation, and their shows don't usually look too great. And this show doesn't
this is
awful,
also,
but it does kind of have like weird bug eyes, and the characters aren't exactly pretty, and the animation isn't amazing.
I remember our conversation based on the Gantz anime.
Yeah. That's a bad one for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that doesn't help. And then this show doesn't really scare a lot of people. And in my opinion, I don't really care if the show scares me or not. I find the concept more of what they're doing is more interesting. I'm really into horror movies or supernatural movies where I like things like magical shop concepts, like what we've talked about, where it's always kind of a monkey's paw thing. I like horror where it's less about trying to scare me and more about the interesting sort of way they can scare the characters and use their characters' guilt and fears to scare them. My favorite like concepts like this are Nightmare on Elm Street, where those movies were basically a lot of the time about taking someone's own fear and using that against them in their dreams, or twisting their dream into something else. So in one of those movies, there's a character that is wheelchair bound most of the time in the real world. But then when he's, in his dreams, he's obviously, able to walk. And, he's a
wizard.
Yeah, he's a cool wizard. We watched this. I forgot. This is Nightmare on Elm Street 3. But spoilers, in that movie, he gets forced into a wheelchair again, basically. And it's like a spiked wheelchair or something.
Wait, I thought Freddy killed him.
Yes, he does, but
Oh,
in a
okay.
wheelchair, basically, if I remember correctly. It's something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's tailored to that. Same way that there's a guy that really likes puppets. So Freddy basically turns a guy into a puppet by pulling up his veins and shit. Yeah, it's gross, but it's also like, it's kind of interesting, like in a really dark way, but I kind of like that. I like Stephen King's It because it's the same sort of thing as well. It's basically...
Wait, the old It or new
Either
It?
one have the same sort of... Well, no, more so the new one has this concept of I'm going to take your fears and your guilt and turn that into something like that's going to scare you, that's going to, chase you down and remind you of it. So one character's a neat freak. So I'm going to have a gypsy that's like all disgusting and gross chase after him. One character, had someone die in a fire. So I'm going to have things constantly, like, I'm going to constantly remind you of that, basically, like when you're looking around. So shit like that. Or, I had a sibling die, so I'm going to be that sibling who died and remind you of that guilt. So, yeah, shit like that. So you're feeling more sorry for the characters and you're connecting with them rather than just being scared of what they're, it's not the thing that's like scaring you, It's more just the concept that is kind of scary. And that's with this show. There's parts where it's like I'm more just sort of interested in how I's going to use, this person's guilt or this person's fear against them. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's, pretty run-of-the-mill. There's good episodes, there's bad episodes.
There's a lot of flaws with the way I uses her system to meet out people,
but
the guilty
the
people.
concept is interesting, and there's a lot of... They take a lot from Shinto sort of Buddhists, religion and mythology, and I'm going to get into that a bit. I'm going to admit, and I've told Erik this off mic as well, it can be... trying to find research to be exact on this can be difficult because Shinto and Buddhist stuff, it's not always like similar, but since most of the stuff isn't always in English, it's hard to find stuff that's exact. And some of this I did read up on Wikipedia. Some of this was like a lot of books I've read, some YouTube, some other stuff. So I've done as much research as I can. If I get anything wrong, please let me know. I may get one or two things wrong here. I'm not a massive expert on this, but I've tried to do some reading over the years. I do find this really interesting, but there are sometimes stuff where it's like, this is very similar to this, or this thing here that you know about is actually taken from this part of religion. For instance, the word yama is actually the yama that we sort of know, the Japanese sort of devils, sort of like a I don't know. I always like to think of them as like they're the secretary of hell. Like you go down to hell and they tell you where you need to go. There's another word for that in like Hinduism. There's like a type of person like that in Hinduism. So it gets confusing with things like that. So I'm going to apologize. My mic is just being hit. So hopefully this doesn't change too much. My legs.
And it's not my fault this time.
Yeah. Sorry. My legs, I've been sort of sitting in a crouch position and my legs are getting a bit sore.
Yeah, I was expecting you to move them because I know you can't sit in the lotus position for more than,
yeah.
More than what, half an hour now?
Yeah. Well, Erik should know. He probably has to do it all the time with meditation and things like that. So... being a martial artist, you'd know this. So I'm going to try and get into some of the mythology behind this because the show, I think I'll just get into some of the little basic things about the characters. So if I remember correctly, means love in Japanese, and enma is kind of a word that can be for devil. Now, it's kind of confusing because there's multiple different sources that I read like that would say different things about what a devil is, and this is a different version of a devil. Then you've got like Oni, and you've got, so you've got all these different things revolving around hell, and they all change or are different depending on if you're reading in Shinto or Buddhist. But basically, her name is Enma, and Enma is kind of like a devil type thing. So it kind of means like love Satan or something like that, almost the name. But she has several helpers with her, and I guess I should actually explain the main premise as well of the show. So basically, there is a website called the Hell Correspondence, and you can access it at midnight, and you can get revenge on anybody you want. But in exchange, you basically you can send them to hell. But in exchange, you go to hell when you die as well. That's the main premise for the show. And Enma is kind of she is so. I'll just sorry. Just
one of the things I do remember about the requirements to ascend to put someone's name down.
I don't remember there
One of the
being
requirements, and this is something I realized in episode 13, rewatching it, is that you have to have genuine grievance for someone.
Yes.
You can't have grievance for someone just because.
They'll say your grievance has been avenged usually at the end of the episode.
It's a difference between knowing somebody's name if they accidentally bump into you and spill your drink versus if that person, say, as in episode 13, forced themselves onto your wife.
You say that, but there are episodes literally where, like, I remember there's one episode where someone's car bumps up against another car, and it was an expensive car, so they were kind of pissed. But then they could send them to hell, and I was like, that's kind of stupid.
But I guess that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like maybe in somebody's heart of hearts, there is something they do understand what's an actual grievance and what isn't. Yeah. So maybe it's the person who's writing the name, their perception of what their grievance is versus what I might do. Maybe I doesn't have that sort of control. Yeah.
So I in herself, she's kind of the best way to describe her is she's not like you wouldn't necessarily categorize her as being Satan or the devil necessarily.
But she is some kind of...
She is kind of like that, but she's kind of like a puppet sort of in the way for that. The best way I would describe her is there are some like allegories sort of to something like this in Japanese and Shinto. I was having a bit of trouble finding that. Like Izanagi was kind of, there's things like that. But the closest thing I could think of to compare her to is actually not from Japanese mythology. I would compare her more to like a Grim Reaper in a bit of a way, but the best thing, and it's very clear, and this is also in Japanese like Shinto stuff as well and Buddhist, but I would compare her to like a ferryman, like, and I'm going to butcher this, Chauron from Dante's Inferno, the guy who would basically take you across the river Styx.
So you take her more from the Greek mythology.
Yeah, from the Greek mythology, who would basically guide you from, basically what would be purgatory, I would assume, into hell, basically. And you would, you'd pay the ferryman and he would take you across. And that's kind of similar here when you think about it. You have a payment, and then instead of you, it's the person you want revenge on takes them basically across the river Styx. But it's the sort of Japanese version of this where they have these, I think they're called torii gates, and in some versions, these torii gates sometimes can be seen as gateways for heaven or for hell. There's one in particular that's sort of seen as like a gateway for hell. There's, different stories about that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's one way you could look at it. Basically you get sent in a boat down, the ferryman takes you. In this case, it's and she's taking you to what would be called, I believe, Yomi. That's their word for hell in Japan. And they basically take you down to the underworld. And the underworld was kind of, I don't necessarily know if I should say ruled or governed by, because it's a little confusing in some ways, because when you read about it, it's like, well, was there a hell or was there not a hell when you read about this? So if anybody knows anything about Japanese mythology, they'll know about Izanami and Izanagi. Basically, the two people that created Japan. Japan was just water at one point, and then Izanagi put his spear into the water and he created land, and then he had several kids with Izanami. But then through childbirth, when Izanami was giving birth to Amaterasu, she basically got very badly burnt and died. And she kind of went to the underworld at that point. Now, what's confusing here that I found a bit hard to follow, and maybe someone can tell me this. There isn't necessarily someone who's a governor or something at that point, but basically this story then starts to follow another. I don't know. Would this be Greek? The is Orpheus Greek or Roman? You know this.
Orpheus is Greek.
Okay, so it follows another sort of Greek mythology thing in that Izanagi basically goes down to the underworld to go get his wife, but like Orpheus, he is told to not look at his wife. Mm-hmm. And he is told to, he can get her back, but he can't look at her. And of course he doesn't do that. He lights up a torch and finds out that she's, it's kind of mean and sad.
She looks
Finds
horrific.
out she's hideous and and then runs away basically. And then leaves her there, and she basically becomes kind of a leader of hell.
There's another version where she gets angry and chases after him, and he has to put a boulder
because he didn't
in
have
front
the
of
alimony payments.
Yeah, and he had to put a boulder in front of the Tory gates and the gateway to the underworld to make sure she stopped chasing him. He
called her fat, and then she chased after him.
Oh boy, that's the one big no-no you have to avoid.
Yeah, so Aya is kind of similar to a Ferryman, and you could almost say Izanagi, Izanami maybe. But I wouldn't call her like the devil. I wouldn't call her Satan. She's not exactly that. She's more like a mix of the Grim Reaper and Charon from Greek mythology. And basically, she'll send anyone for there. And then she's got these associates. She's got One Yudo and Ren. Now, One Yudo, he is, I used to call him Old Man Hipster, because he wears a scarf and a kimono, and he kind of dresses like a bit of a mixture of old-fashioned and new sort of clothing. So I called him Old Man Hipster. And he is... both of them, actually, are what you would call in mythology a Sukugami. So a Sukugami is basically
a wheel
spirit.
Demon?
No, that One Yudo is a wheel demon. That is correct. But what both of them are, One Yudo and Ren, one of her other associates, they are Sukugami. So Sukugami, Erik would know what one of these is, because that's kind of what they are in Shaman King. They're spirits that can possess objects. And Ren, kind of like a Miyamaru in Shaman King, is a spirit that possessed a sword at one point. One Yudo is you don't find out what I believe you find out at one point, I think, what he used to be, but basically he's a spirit that possesses a wheel, and these wheels were usually like something that would bring people down to hell, and they were usually used on kind of Satan's, they were part of hell and used as sort of something that would travel between. And that's basically what One Yudo is. And you even see him like turn into a wheel when Aenma's leaving hell and going into the real world, and she goes on kind of like a what would you call it, like a carriage that goes up into the sky. Yeah. And I believe there might be something like that in either Shinto or Buddhist. But basically, One Yudo is like this flaming wheel that in mythology could travel from hell and earth. And then he sort of has the power to shapeshift into basically any person. But a lot of the time, in some episodes, he'll just be himself. And he'll just, people, all three of her companions can basically take on a name and an identity. And they'll just blend in, and people won't really seem to notice. There is one person that becomes attached to one of them in one of the episodes, and that's kind of interesting. But for the most part, they usually, they sort of just turn up. They do what they have to do to sort of help out with whatever needs to happen, and then they basically just go away. But he can shapeshift to almost anything. And then the last one you've got, and I'm going to have to look up the name here. The last one that we've got is Hone Ona, and she is a skeleton demon. She is a yokai, and what she basically is, she's kind of like a version of a succubus. She is basically the skeleton woman that was someone's mistress or something in a past time, and she basically comes back to haunt that person. And she'll
A
be
literal skeleton in someone's closet coming
she'll
back
be
to
a
life.
beautiful skeleton that haunts men, and she can contort herself, which comes in handy sometimes. She'll hide in a box or something if need be for one of Ai's traps or something if they need to. And she'll turn into like a skeleton. Like there's in the first episode we see a skull, which I'm pretty sure is hers. There's stuff like that'll appear. So that's a little bit of the sort of mythology of these characters, and all three of them can turn into basically this string doll that's kind of like a voodoo doll that can have sort of it'll have like a thing wrapped around it, like a
red cloth.
ribbon. Yeah, be like a ribbon, like a red ribbon or a blue ribbon. And all of them, basically, part of their clothing or something will turn, and then they'll turn into this sort of ribbon thing. I should also mention Ren can turn into a literal, just an eye, and can look through anywhere and look around, basically. And yeah, these characters basically help Ai to transport people to hell, or help Ai torture these people before they go to hell, to show them their guilt, to show them their sins, and to sort of punish them, and help Ai out. And that's basically like
the premise.
That's the gist of the premise and the characters. So, Erik, I've asked you if you can tell us maybe just what happens in the first episode. Some of them, and more. We'll discuss what we liked, what we didn't like about the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, from what I can remember, it doesn't take that long for there to be an actual ongoing story for this series, because in the first several episodes, it's all episodic. Each episode is different, but still contains Ai and her companions, who just go around answering calls for people who have grievances with other people. But each story which leads up to that is different. For example, the first story is about a junior high school student who helped collect money to fundraise for something. I can't remember what it was. Some kind of sign or something. But she was framed for embezzlement.
This is quite common, these sort of things in high school. Not the money stealing, but the thing of the whole class have to put money towards some sort of event, and then one student's sort of asked to look after that. And usually in a lot of bullying anime, I assume this does happen because it's in bullying anime and manga so much, where basically someone steals the money and frames it on that person.
Yeah. So in this episode, the girl was framed by bullies and then blackmailed along the way. Yeah. So then she finds a website then and puts in the name of the bully, the main bully who has been bullying her.
Well, she almost does this, but then she tries to kill herself at one point. But then Ai comes down, because she almost doesn't, I believe, type the name in, and then she does it later on, and then she gets the doll, and that's basically how it goes.
But in this episode, she doesn't exactly kill herself.
She almost does. Ai comes down with her and sort of gives her the doll.
That's right. Oh no, did she? I can't even remember that part. But yeah, that's basically how that episode finishes. Now the second episode,
how would you rate the first episode? It's
a good introduction, a good pilot episode to introduce us to the series. Obviously, the whole bullied student is a quite generic thing to do.
It's generic, but it's relatable, I guess. We have seen it being done,
and they could have picked a worse way to introduce us to the show. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Now the second episode that gets a bit more interesting, and I like this episode. It introduces another high school student, but this time this is a student who has a stalker. So she and her family have been terrorized by the stalker because the stalker's interested in her. Yeah. And so the father, who keeps going back and forth with the police, could not find the stalker. Yeah. So it has a bit of a mystery feel to it, to figure out who the stalker is. And of course, after you watch the episode, you kind of do realize, that was obviously the stalker all along.
Yeah,
And
but it's a nice twist. You don't see
is.
it coming, and there's like this is the show sort of introduces this in the first episode where.
And
the
it does,
scary and the dark thing about the show isn't what eye does to people. Like, that's not going to scare you or make you upset. It's what these people do. Like, that, it's to show how dark some of these people can be. And in this episode especially, we're seeing a real, like, scary threat. And he even he kills one person, we see at least. Like, he kills a police officer.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing about this episode is exactly to what extent I and her companions can interact with, the mortal plane. Because in the first episode, it wasn't that clear. And this one, we see in one scene where one of the companions actually, goes to confront the stalker, and the stalker has to run away, which means that in some cases,
well, this is after she's pulled the string.
Exactly.
As well,
So in some instances, they don't just let things run their course. They let things run their course as according to a contract because they've put the name into their website. And I think and that was a good episode, I thought, and it really introduced a little bit more into how the I and her companions work. And a little bit more of the rules around how these contracts are made. Now, the third one was definitely a bit more. How do I put this? There's definitely a lot more drama to this. But it didn't really explore much of what I and her companions do, but it explored more towards deeper into a person's methods and how their reasons to do this, and it introduced the character.
Also about bullying, but this is about like a bully. This is about a douchebag who like will bully you, then like basically beat your best friend to death, and then like frame it on you. That's the plot of this.
Yeah, but it does introduce a bit. It does introduce a bit of a moral point because the main character here does genuinely hesitate to pull the string because he believes there is a way to get the douchebag to reconcile with this, because this person, this main character in this episode does have, this a
conscience.
Basically. He has a conscience. His moral compass points to good because he feels that, look, my best friend has died. I know you did it. You're an asshole, but I don't want to do anything else. I want us to reconcile to this. Yeah. And he only pulls the string when he realizes, the douchebag has, killed his friend over the stupidest reasons. And even I thought, pull the string. Just do it. Which was, I think, I could let, I don't really mind not learning too much about I and her companions because this is a good moral.
And this is, I hate saying this, but this is great because if you watch this episode, Justin Cook in the dub is playing the douchebag guy. And I feel really bad saying this, but he does such a good douchebag. It was kind of funny because it's like, Jesus, man, he is great at doing this. This is like, he's awesome at this. But he shouldn't be. He's really good at playing this, like, dick of an asshole. You just, like, you just like, when they introduce him, you're like, kill that guy.
So I'm going to skip over episode 4 because I don't remember much about it.
So I'm going to we only watched 3 episodes, but me and Erik have actually seen all of the show. I think and I've seen the second season.
I can't remember too many of these episodes, but I can remember the more memorable.
So ones. I've seen 2 seasons, and I've seen the third season. The third season is shit. The live action is shit, and the manga is shit. Just check out the first 2 seasons. So the 4th episode, I like to call Vic Mignogna Bad Vet.
I don't remember that.
When I watched this in the dub, all I could remember was Vic Mignogna plays a horrible vet, like a vet who basically this girl brings her dog in, and the dog is like kind of sick, and it's. From what, like, if I was going to watch it now, and what I can remember, and what I know sort of about dogs and from working at this PCA for a little bit, this dog basically comes in with what could be like a heart attack or like something like, it's basically, it's too hyper. It needs,
something sick dog related.
It needs a sedative or something like that. and he needs to treat the dog straight away, but instead he gets a call from someone, like just a buddy of his. He doesn't care about the dog. He takes the call. The dog dies, and like she's very upset about this, and the doctor doesn't really seem to care that much. And then she finds out like that basically happened, and she's like, well, he can't live now. So she, and then this doctor ended up threatening like another friend of hers who's working at the place. So they're like, no, he's got to go. So of course he goes to hell. Probably the most interesting thing about this is since he murdered like and let a lot of animals die, his fate is like almost getting operated on at one point, like very badly. Like they're basically going to kind of make an incision in his head.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, but at the same time, like, ugh. But
Yeah,
then then he also, like, when he's on the boat, which happens at the end of all of these, the guy's going to hell, or girl goes on the boat. He is basically sitting on this boat and he gets dragged down by the puppies and kittens and lots of dogs.
This is something I never understood.
Yeah.
I think the reason I don't remember this episode is because I thought it was stupid that she immediately went to Hell Girl to drag him into hell and not tell this to, say, the business and have this guy locked up. Because it is against the law. It is against the business practice to actually murder animals without just cause.
Well,
which means that
the problem is he's not technically murdering animals. He's not technically he's not gassing them.
No, but he's not treating them properly, which is, could be potentially malpractice for animals, which is quite serious.
Well, the biggest thing is you could just say, hey, can you, because she gets friends with one of the one of the other people working there. And when I watched it, I thought, hey, instead of blabbing like you guys are all blabbing while the doctor was there, why don't you like go behind his back like you have been talking about this story? Why don't one of you like steal the tape, which I think they maybe did, but they maybe should have tried again, steal the tape, then take that to the police. And then be like, hey, we've got video evidence of this guy like ignoring my dog and letting it die, and we have a couple other tapes of the same shit, because there is clearly a camera in there. Like there would be a camera in there. A lot of places have cameras in them now.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised they because even I think you'd have a camera even just if you wanted, like if you performed some sort of operation and you wanted to have it filmed so you could show a student or something in the future, So a lot of these places, I think, would have cameras, and for security reasons, obviously. So yeah, And then you watched another episode, because I thought Erik hadn't watched all three, so he watched an episode.
I only remember, I think...
you watched an episode in the dub, because you watched these.
Yes, I've watched episode 5 in dubbed.
Yep.
The Woman in the High Tower, which I thought was a good one and tied in really well with episode 3 because it had the whole moral dilemma thing.
Yeah.
Because in this episode, there was a CEO of a computer company who was using a young schoolgirl who was a genius, the young schoolgirl being a genius in computers, and using her to maintain and expand her company.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it has its whole mystery feel to it.
I just want to mention this is like an anthology sort of series. Like there's no continuous story until maybe it's like episode 8 or something where we get private reporter Hajime.
Mm-hmm.
He's investigating that's when we sort of get a continuous story. But most of these episodes are like an anthology, just different people sending people to hell. But yeah, as Erik was saying about this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was it pretty much all it was still I was almost forgetting what I was going to say. I kind of forgot what I was going to say.
So it was basically about this woman. When I watched it the first time, I couldn't remember it. So I thought the old lady sent the younger girl to hell, but it's the other way around. So this younger girl's basically being taken advantage of. She's been sort of bribed, and you find out later on that she wasn't really threatened by that, but she was trying to...
She was trying to dig up dirt on the CEO who may have caused the death of her own father.
Yeah.
and it turns out to be true. And the CEO hired someone to kill the girl.
Yep.
But then the girl got the CEO's name into the Hellgirl website, and so the CEO was taken to hell.
I've got to say of this episode as well, and it happens in a couple other ones too. It actually feels like even before she sends this person to hell, like it feels like the assistants are really angry at this lady for taking advantage of the Hellcore, respondent system and for everything she's doing. So they kind of, they investigate it and they kind of infiltrate this office. But then there's also a couple of times that they clearly try and push things further, or they clearly come in and help. And this only happens maybe a couple times in the series. Another time this happens is there's a Hell Boy or something. There's a person trying to be like a version of Hell Girl. And they really don't like this person. And they sort of investigate and try and, and someone eventually does send this person to hell, and you can tell they're kind of happy about it. But yeah, so we watched that, and then we've seen all this, as I said before, so we were just watching first 3 again, and I remember really liking episode 13, so we watched episode 13. That's probably my favorite episode of the whole series. And what did you think of episode 13, Eric?
Episode 13? Oh, I thought that was a fantastic episode because it did it was almost like watching The Ring,
Yeah,
it's
I definitely said the second half is more like The Ring a little bit. Someone investigating.
Yeah, someone investigating
stuff.
and just kind of understanding what the story is behind it, especially with the young girl aspect. Whereas, but of course, where we find out in The Ring, it's a young girl who was pushed into a well.
Yeah.
This is still adding quite a lot of mystery to who I is, but understanding more of how far back her existence, is. It's
I found it really interesting because I thought this could go back to her Hell correspondence could be even further than just telegram and fax. It could go back to
let me have a look. The old guy they visit, a guy named Fukumoto, who reckons Hellgirl could have been. The existence of Hellgirl could have been as old
the premise of this episode. Yeah. So Hajime, I think his name's Shibai.
Yeah, Shibata.
Is a private, he's a reporter basically, and he's trying to do this story. And through a number of episodes, he's been introduced to Enma Hellgirl because his daughter's kind of telepathic, basically. And this is one of the episodes where someone does go to hell, but we don't see there's no ribbon being pulled. There's no plot about someone needing to get revenge. It's mostly just about investigation, and it's all about Hajime going through these different leads. He goes to an adult bookstore and finds this image of Enma in one of the books. And then he goes and investigates that, finds the publisher, and then that leads him to find this this artist that Eric's talking about right now.
Yeah, and basically he finds the artist Fukumoto and learns how Fukumoto himself was associated with Hellgirl and how he used Hellgirl to mete out his vengeance and grievance on someone. And we learn from Fukumoto that Hellgirl could be as old as the Edo period or the Warring States period. So Hellgirl, we can already see that Hellgirl's history is old, very old, and basically, at the end of it, we just see Fukumoto seeing Hellgirl one last time, and
it shows basically what happens to those who. In the past, he used the old version of the Hell correspondence before the internet existed. He used the one on the paper, and basically sent a letter, and this went to Enma, and then she got revenge for this person. I think Erik briefly touched on it. Basically, he caught one of his friends. I would even say having an affair. It seemed like maybe he had raped her or did something like that. And then basically she killed herself, and he basically gets revenge and basically shows what actually happens to people who live their entire life and, then have to go to hell because they got revenge on someone.
But I do like.
It's very sweet, actually. It's
It
not
is.
like
It's a peaceful
torture.
end. It's a peaceful end to him. He doesn't get tortured. He doesn't get, forced to see, what sort of mistakes he made.
And
He
she
just
even
gets
tries to comfort him at the end, too.
and kind of tell him, no, you won't be able to see the guy you put into hell.
Yeah.
Hell's too big for this. You probably won't find him. It's like,
Yeah.
which is kind of a bit of a silly thing to say, but okay. Because even though she says hell's a vast place, it's like the guy's gonna be there for an eternity. I'm pretty sure he'll eventually find the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's 2 doors down. Greg, you got to go to Greg's first, and then you'll see him.
Yeah, just go down, pass through the animal torture pit.
See, I'm kind of glad I watched.
through.
I'm kind of glad I watched The Good Place because The Good Place has a lot of humor like this, where they go to hell and it's like, oh yeah, so we you come to hell. We watch The Bachelor all the time.
Oh God!
We put fish in the microwave.
I shouldn't even ask which Bachelor. It's all terrible.
All of them are bad.
They're all terrible. Yeah, I think the worst thing people will tell you is, welcome to hell. You're going to be listening to Justin Bieber's Baby on repeat over and over again. And no, there is nothing here to stab out your ears or eyes with.
No, Eric. We do have some other tracks. We have the full Nickelback Greatest Hits CD.
See, the thing is, I do kind of like Nickelback. Just some songs, okay? Although the other thing
You're
is,
gonna tell me like Evanescence as well.
come on, look,
Eric is a 2,000-year-old
shit,
one of those 2000s kids that's gonna tell me
shut it.
until that emo rock and screamo. All right, so
shut it.
let's get back. So we both liked episode 13. Episode 13 is actually my favorite out of all of them because it does something different. Sorry, my voice is going a bit here. It's kind of sweet, and I just think it's an interesting one because it's so different from all the other episodes, and it's well acted, it's well done. It just really captures something really interesting, and the mythology of just the idea that this correspondence has been going so long that it's been going in the paper. That it might at one point being done through fax or paging, or back in Edo period maybe it might have been done, or the Meiji area it might have been done through carrier pigeon or something like that. Is just fascinating.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite episode though out of all of the ones we've watched?
Didn't have much time to go over all of them, and I've only watched the first 3, really.
Yeah,
but I'd have to, and subbed the first 3. But I have to say, third episode is definitely my favorite because it introduces less about what the world building is and I and her companions, and more about the moral dilemma when it comes to the option of sending someone directly to hell, because it is. When you have a gun in your hand, there are very few, scenes where when you are told, yep, you can straight up shoot the guy who's trying to kill your wife. But there's no explanation of what the moral dilemma is. It's like you kill the guy, but what comes out of this?
I did find it interesting the way they tortured him as well for making him play like a baseball game where he basically loses. And he's losing to the people who he's trying to torture. And then at the end of it, he gets taken, he gets basically brought down to hell by the person he's killed. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting.
And then eventually we do get to that torture, but the moral dilemma part of it with the main character of that episode, I thought was brilliant.
So as I said before, I like 13. I guess out of the 3, I kind of liked 2 a lot actually because I watched 2 a lot. I just think it's quite an interesting sort of thriller, and it is genuinely kind of creepy at some moments. And I'm not talking about the hell stuff. I just mean the actual stalker guy in this. It's a real threat, and it's something you can see being there. It's not like some of the other ones in the episodes are kind of just a little too over the top, or you're like, that's just not even real. That's just too mean. That's no human is that much of an asshole. But episode 2, you're like, yeah, I could totally believe that this older guy would be,
Yeah.
chasing after this girl and like almost, would kill people like if they get in the way. Like you can see that. So yeah. So what were some things you liked, some things you didn't like?
About Hellgirl in general. The animation was a bit funny, It was quite fuzzy. It was too soft.
We talked about this a little at the start.
Yeah, it was quite fuzzy, quite soft. That's one thing I didn't really like about it. I think there was some parts of it.
I just want to make one change. So this was actually done by Studio Dean, which is even worse than Gonzo a little bit. They have done some good shows, but they're known for not having great animation either. But yeah, as you were saying, Eric, sorry.
And also, what is it? Yeah, so it was that plus the what is it? Some acting here and there that gets a bit hammy. Or
in the sub and the dub, or just the?
I'd say both, really.
Yeah, I would agree
some
on
part
that.
of it. Some parts
it's very
of it.
melodramatic in a couple places.
It's very melodramatic in a couple of places. I think the most melodramatic part is the affair episode. I think that was way over the top and a little bit.
It was like a soap opera.
It was like a soap opera episode.
So, yeah, I would say this show, I would agree with Eric on most of the points. The one thing that, could also be something that's maybe put people off of the show is it's very repetitive a couple times. I think it even repeats like some plot lines, but with different characters. And if you get to season 3, they literally repeat the same sort of premise, but it just gets kind of stupider to the point like there's an episode where someone gets revenge because their phone got taken away from them in class. I'm not kidding. That's an actual episode. Yeah, that's stupid. Because the interesting thing with this show is what it like chooses to do with the Hell correspondence later on in the show. This first season, they sort of just get into the origins of I. They don't really do too much of that. But season 2, there's a whole plot line revolving around people abusing the Hell correspondence and using it too much and getting rid of lots and lots of people, and sometimes not even for good real reasons, like morally good reasons. And people just abusing the system too much. So there's stuff like that that's really interesting in the second season. But third season is garbage. Third season's shit, and the animation is...
Yeah, you told me first season was shit.
Animation's kind of iffy. And it can be a bit repetitive. It can be a bit silly at times. But let's get into... some of the things
one thing I want to ask Connor before we continue is, can you tell me the name of another anime Studio Dean did around the same time as Hellgirl that we both know and also had some pretty questionable animation?
Okay.
This is gonna be fun.
Is it Tokyo Margin?
Nope. The one we both know this one. I don't know that one.
I wouldn't say King of Bandits Jing, because that is by them, but it's better animation.
Oh, King of Bangers Jing was in 2002. I'm talking about the same time as Hellgirl, 2006.
Oh, okay. Rurouni Kenshin, Trust and Betrayal is them as well, but that's actually pretty good.
It's not 2006.
It's not. The Reflections is them too, but you're probably not saying that. They did do the Blaze Blue cutscene or one of those sort of things.
Not in
people didn't like
2006.
that.
No, 2000. Okay. Remember, just 2006.
Okay, I'm stumped. What's the show?
Fate Stay Night.
Ah, yes, yeah. That was an awful animation compared to that. They did do Fate Zero, I think, as well. So they actually
Fate Zero was Studio Ufotable.
Oh.
Ufotable.
Oh.
How can you not know that? Ufotable does some fantastic animations.
Okay.
Because their budget, apparently, from one comment, can buy Belgium, which I think is great.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, go ahead with your one. I thought it'd be an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah.
What Studio Dean did.
Yeah. So Dean is not known for great animation, and this is no exception. Like you're not going to see any crazy good animation in this. You're not going to see anything. All of it kind of looks kind of samey. Nobody looks really pretty in the show either. But there are some good things of the show. I like the music. I think the music is pretty good. They do reuse a lot of music. You'll definitely notice that. But there's a lot of anime that's guilty for that. And I think the music being reused in this show actually works, unlike a couple other shows I've seen where it's like, you using this theme again doesn't actually work. But here it works most of the time because since the storylines are kind of repetitive and the music being repetitive, it works for what it needs to do. There is one song in there that is really cheesy, and it reminds me of like something you'd play under Old Yeller or something. It's that cheesy. But yeah, I like that. So Erik, you said you like the opening since we're talking about the music.
Yeah, I absolutely love the opening. I know the English parts of it was a bit but then but I did like I really like the music of the opening.
It's a catchy theme song.
It's a very catchy one.
I get that.
And I think
I get the theme stuck in my head a lot.
I mean, I think for its time, it was a pretty beautiful opening. You know, animation-wise, they seem to have put a little bit more effort into it than they did.
It took me a while to grow on it at first because I thought it was a little too upbeat at first when I heard it. But then after listening to it again, it's kind of like until it gets to the chorus, it is kind of like sad. And then it builds up in the chorus, which is kind of accurate to the show because there are episodes where it's like really sad and then they get the revenge and they get kind of a happy ending. Sometimes they don't, which is an interesting thing as well.
Yeah.
But I think the ending is perfect, like the song. I wouldn't say about the animation. The animation's okay. I remember it being more fan servicey, but it's not that fan servicey. But I do really like the song. It's a good song. It captures exactly, I think, the tone of the show. Like
it
perfectly.
does. It does.
And it's a song I've listened to outside of the show. And I did sing it in karaoke because it's a pretty easy song to sing.
You can sing it in karaoke?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is fantastic.
It was an easy song to sing. And my cousin heard it and she's like, I don't know what this anime is, but the lyrics kind of like, they're good lyrics and it's a sad song, but it's cool.
The sad part is I can't use this in our drinking game, so you pick up on it immediately.
No, yeah, you definitely cannot. I know this song a lot. And it's sung by the voice actor of I Enma. It's sung by Mamiko Noto, who is, yeah, so she's a singer as well as a voice actor, and she plays I Enma in this. She does kind of use the same voice for a lot of her roles, but she also plays a lot of the same type of characters. So she was in Freezing as well. She was the main character in Freezing, the blonde chick.
Is that Eliza?
Yeah. So she was that in Freezing. And the one that she usually uses a kind of low, whispery kind of voice for most of her roles. But one role that people might be surprised she did is, and it's not a great show, but it's kind of good to see like her do something different. She was the main lead in Witchblade, and that's definitely a very different voice for her if you watch that show.
Yep.
Because it's more of like a lower, she has to like play a very different type of character. Because usually she either plays a character that's kind of nervous or shy, or she plays a character that's like this one that's kind of like almost dead and emotionless. And I thought she did a very good job with conveying that. I thought most of the in both the dub and the sub, I thought the main leads, I Enma, Ren, Wanyudo, and Hone Ona, I thought all of them were well done in both the dub and the sub. Especially Bruce Elliott in the dub and Brina Palencia, who plays I Enma. I think both of them did a great job. You'll definitely get used to hearing them a lot because they Bruce Elliott narrates most of the next episode previews, but then you also hear them when they say things like "Your grievance shall be avenged," or there's a very famous line that you always hear at the end of the show. Before she sends someone to hell, she says something like, "Oh, pitiful shadow wallowing in your,"
Yeah, she's got that catchphrase that she uses almost every time.
And it changes depending on whether in the dub it says something like, perhaps it is time to die. In the sub it is like, shinde miru or something like that, which basically is just like, maybe it's time to give death a chance or something. It's like,
yeah.
Both are kind of like, you get them stuck in your head.
Yeah,
but I had no problem with the dub or the sub. I could switch between either. And the cool thing about this dub was it was an early Funimation dub, and they didn't reuse a lot of people because since the show was so repetitive and they introduced different people, they could have, if they wanted to, reuse actors and just have them do different voices. But what they did instead was they thought, okay, we've got like a different person each show. They basically introduced new people in each time. It was basically an experience to give like a new actor an opportunity. So you've got people from, who were like starting up, like Monica Royale's in the second episode. Lucy Christian, I think's in like the first episode. A bunch of people who have became like big names now. A couple people who you won't ever hear of, and then some people from ADV who've like gone on to do other things at different studios. Got to sort of come in, do a bit part, and then leave. So it was kind of good for that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So that's my main pros. What are some of yours? What did you think of the dub and the sub?
I did like I liked both the dubbed and the sub, to be honest, and both. No, I really had no problems with either of them. In comparison to other animes
I think
seen.
both are fine.
Yeah, both are absolutely good. And that little, and I mean it's obvious. I mean, given the obvious translations that are given for both, I'm not really going to give them a hard time on that. I mean, even that little catchphrase difference for I is
not that like it's
it
not
doesn't
it doesn't change the entire scene.
and it shouldn't be a bother, but. Obviously, where massive mistakes are made is where there's name changes or there's, literal line changes that shouldn't.
And that doesn't really happen here. The only thing I noticed that's maybe you could say is bad is there's like I think Funimation was still learning to pronounce a couple names right here or there.
Yeah.
Or there were times where like they really emphasized the pronunciation. Like what was the the artist name that you mentioned before?
Fukumoto.
Yeah. See, they were like Fuka something motor da 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 da. They said it like Fukamoto da 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 da, and the line delivery was a bit stilted. That's one thing I noticed. And now they're a little bit better at just doing like, it's Fukamoto said that they're able to make it flow a little bit better in the sentence. Which back then they were like, there's a couple times where they're really trying to pronounce the name right, and then there's a couple times where like it should be Shibata or Shibata, and it's just Shibata. Or just Shibata, just Shibata, because they're just rushing through the sentence. And there's not as much,
Not a good thing to do.
There's either too much attention paid to like trying to pronounce it right, or not enough, and the flow kind of doesn't always work.
It's not a good thing to do, especially when you're trying to get the names.
Generally,
right.
The acting's fine, and it is great to like hear them use a lot of different people. And you'll get to hear some people like, I didn't think they could play that kind of role, but I'm getting to see them like, do something different. Like, as I said, this show, you'll get to see Vic Mignogna play a horrible doctor. I'm like, this is probably his worst character he's played.
If Vic Mignogna is going to keep listening, listen to this and keep listening to you shitting on him, he's going to say something.
So he played that, and then you've also got like, as I said, you've got some like other actors coming in and doing stuff that's different from their typecast. There's one, we're watching episode 13, and I believe the actor in that is sadly no longer with us. I wish I could remember his name, but he was one of Funimation's older actors, and he sadly passed a couple of years ago. So it's kind of sad watching that one since that guy dies at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good show to see like some early people who are coming up and that sort of thing.
No, definitely.
So yeah, that's our review for Hellgirl, and so let's get into the manga.
Erik, Hozuki's Coolheadedness.
Why don't you explain the premise of this?
So I haven't been able to read much of Hozuki's Coolheadedness, but what I have read about it is the manga series is about a demon called Hozuki, who is part of a management team in hell trying to sort out different sections of hell. So it goes on to kind of explain what each section of hell does and how it tortures people, as well as how each demon and how each ogre and all these creatures manage this sort of thing.
This to me more rang close to Buddhist hell a little bit more than Shinto.
They do kind of explain it in the manga site that I saw. The translator's notes do actually make quite a few notes of it. So there's a lot of Buddhist influence into how
because it reminds me a lot of
operates.
Diyu, which is the Chinese version of hell, which has about 8 different hells, and they each specialize in different brands of torture. So it's kind of like what I was explaining. We have like a Yama who is like your secretary for hell, and they're like, "Oh yes, Mr. Smith, I see you were a rapist. You get the burning your feet off hell." Mr. James Weeks Booth, you shot the president, so we're gonna make you watch nothing but president porn.
You know what this reminds me of?
Yeah.
The Rowan Atkinson, The Devil's skit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's what it's actually reminding me of right
Toby.
now. Toby, that's the one.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, but unlike that
and
skit,
the Jews are right.
but unlike that skit, this is actually a little bit more chaotic. So we know, like, hell would in some aspects mean chaos, but in this case, it's a bad thing, as explained. The history of how the hell in Hozuki's Coolheadedness was divided in order to be much more manageable as the world developed and progressed, which I think was a brilliant way to describe hell, because it meant that even the underworld, which we would think even this archaic and completely old mystified stories, in this scenario is developing alongside the world, trying to actually keep up with it. And we can see the struggle that they have trying to keep up with how the world progresses. So it's a bit of a familiar, it strings along a familiar tone, to us, because we can see that, because Hozuki and Enma, they have a sit down and discuss kind of how hell was split up and how it's currently managed and how bad it is, which is it's a really good thing to watch because of how, because as I said, it strikes a familiar tone where we would see this working, even as low as, even as a lowly, as what we would consider ourselves as a lowly grunt, we would even see, like, looking up how most businesses could struggle to, keep up with the progression of how the world progresses, which I thought was quite interesting, a quite interesting concept so far. But I'm assuming there's other concepts like sort of the religious and cultural influences like Buddhism into this whole thing is something you paid more attention to than I did.
I sort of did. I'm gonna, I thought I'd really like this because I saw the imagery, and I love this sort of stuff of religion and studying it. But reading this, I had a problem because I just thought the humor wasn't that funny, to be honest. Like the jokes just weren't very funny. The concept is funny, but the jokes just aren't well executed. And the art is okay. The story's like, it's all right. It's got a lot of interesting stuff, but like this is where the concept for me wasn't interesting enough. But there is one part of the story that I was just overlooking again that I did find interesting, that I did find kind of funny, and that was when they, because Hozuki is basically meant to be like a version of Satan or something. That's what I read it as. Where they've got an Enma, they've got a Yama, they've got sort of what I was sort of explaining at the start of this, where they've got like these sort of people that are in charge of the different bits of hell. And to me, he's this guy that's overviewing all of hell. So he's like Satan, basically. Kind of like the Dante's Inferno version, where Dante's Inferno, there's 12 different entrances, there's different 7 or 12 different ways going down to hell, different tortures and stuff. I'm asking you, how many? There was like 12 or something, wasn't there?
There was 10.
10 rings, sorry. I haven't read it in a while. But there's many different
I want
ways.
to get the Italian version.
And then the
of it.
the final one is where it's like frozen ice, and that's where
It's frozen hell, and that's where the devil lives.
yeah, that's where the devil lives, because he, when hell freezes over.
Well, hell's frozen over, so what's happening there?
Yeah. So he's kind of like, that's the way I read him. He's the Japanese sort of version of that. But what I love is they do introduce the Western version of the devil in this. And I like that he is like, he goes there and he's like, wow, this is worse than my hell. Like he's disturbed by it. He's disturbed by the way, not the like torture of the humans, but the way he treats his employees. Like he's like, wow, I'm Satan, but even I respect my employees and treat them nicely.
So like a nice boss, basically.
Yeah, Satan is a really nice boss in Western hell, according to this.
Do you think he's nicer than Enma in Dragon Ball series?
Enma doesn't seem that mean to me. He just seems like he's a bit of a grumpy boss.
Yeah.
He's a J. Jonah Jameson, but he's fine. He just wants pictures of Spider-Man. But
Oh dear.
this version of the devil is also obsessed with RPGs, including Final Fantasy and things like that. And I'm just looking now. There was one joke in there that sort of made me laugh that I was laughing at. Where the devil's talking about how he wouldn't get angry at his employees, and he says, I didn't even get so angry when my Final Fantasy save data was erased by mistake. I thought that was kind of funny.
Because Final Fantasy is a bitch.
Because he's obsessed, and I imagine he's stuck on bloody X-Def or whatever, and then has to try and get through that,
God.
or he's stuck in some dungeon, and he doesn't have a way to get out because it's Final Fantasy 1 or something. But I found that kind of funny. Like that whole chapter's funny. But
I think
the rest of it, I gotta say, this was kind of a letdown for me, but disappointing.
Yeah, especially the first chapter with Momotaro, where even I'm familiar with this story and I've read it before.
I found that just really annoying, though.
It was a strange.
It's not that funny, kind of annoying.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I thought at least the responses from the animals over reasons why they decided to follow Momotaro would be funnier, but it's like the dog says it's because of the dumplings, the monkey says it's because of the dumplings, the pheasant always says some other ambiguous or some unclear reason, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
So
other than when the two Satans meet, I would say this is like not really a recommend for me. It wasn't really that great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd recommend people read this. Just we enjoyed Hell Girl. I do enjoy things about like the afterlife. I enjoyed The Good Place, but I did not. This was not a Good Place show for me. This was a bad show for me. So so this has been Alternating with Erik, episode 31. And because we always forget to do this, and we're going to try and do this more often.
Yes, we do.
You can check out some of our episodes up on the YouTube. That is Insert Cast Productions. I am going to make a separate YouTube page called Alternating with Erik. It's just going to take me 2 days to do it because there's a lot of content up there. Because it's not just this podcast, it's my previous podcast and some music and stuff. But we'll have a separate page for you guys just so you can listen to the podcast, check out a drinking video we're going to put up there. We've got a Let's Play up there. We have an Armageddon video up there. We have most of our content up there.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and get more episodes up there. Tell me if you want more episodes up or if you'd rather just listen to them on Spotify or whatever, because all of our stuff is on Spotify. It goes to Spotify usually on Tuesday or Wednesday. And our Spotify is Alternating with Erik. And Erik, why don't you tell them what the Facebook is since you run it?
So the Facebook is also Alternating with Erik, and it uploads all the episodes from YouTube and from the Spotify sources. So you'll be able to see contents from both of them around the same time that they upload them. Obviously, even though I do manage the Facebook page, I manage it really whenever I feel like it. So
He needs to do a little bit less. He needs to be a bit more consistent with it.
I really do.
Because I gave
but
it to him because I was managing the Facebook, the
Yeah.
YouTube, and everything.
And I've been a little
technically we have
lazy.
a Twitter, but it was getting a bit too much to manage.
Yeah.
So
Did you
that
say you had an
Twitter is
Instagram
inactive,
as well?
Inactive. Yes. So I mostly post to the Instagram if you want to see what I'm up to and when the episodes are going to come out. That's that's always updated when the episode's up most of the time. And that's at Insert Connor here. And you can go there and you'll see basically what I'm up to, like my music. Sometimes my cat's on there. But most of the time, it's our episodes up there. But yeah, you can also go to the Facebook, the YouTube, and we do technically have a Twitter called InsertCast, which sometimes has some of our episodes up there. I don't think I've posted on that Twitter in a year, so it is very inactive. But if you want to give us a follow on Facebook, want to give us a like on YouTube, we would really appreciate that. And this has been episode 31. Catch you guys later.
See ya.